So the challenge with innovation, we hear over and over again, and there's been surveys on this, we're all frustrated with our organization's ability to be innovative. We even look at ourselves and we wonder, why is it that our teams aren't more innovative? We're giving them all the support we need, we've explored different ideas, we encourage them, we say, always be testing, don't be afraid to fail, and yet we still feel very discouraged about our company's abilities to be innovative. Well, here's what I would say. It's that we want innovation, but there's actually behavioral barriers in the way. Because innovation is an outcome. It can merely be an outcome. Science can make innovation just this very practical exercise where we look to prior research, we understand how it can be applied to different situations. We can run our experiments and see what works and learn from what doesn't. And there's different kinds of innovation that science can help us with. There's radical, like this coin. Who knew that that would work? Or there's even cases of it being systematic. Let me walk you through another case study. So how do we increase classroom attendance amongst adult learners? Adult learners can be, well, they're a very difficult population. We worked with a chain of schools that focus on providing vocational learning to adults. This is the kind of vocational learning that gives people the certificates and licenses that they need to practice fields like commercial air conditioner systems maintenance. You need to have a license to do that because there's health and safety implications. So there's a number of fields like that that require workers to have licenses. And this school focused on providing the training required to get those licenses. But one of the challenges that they faced was this adult population wasn't like teaching kids. You see, with kids, you have things like, all the neighbors, you guys are all going on the school bus together. So you've got social pressure, you've got your families that are very aware of who might not be going to school, so you have pressure to attend school. And then you have things like families and friends to remind you to get your homework done, to study for tests. So there's a whole network to help you with both social support and overcome planning challenges. So these are two of the very significant behavioral barriers that adult learners face. So we identified those as fundamental psychological challenges that adult learners face. And so then we developed a set of experiments that were very, very simple tactics just to see if there's anything that could be done to help increase these adults' likelihood to attend class that week. Because there's a correlation between people showing up to class and actually doing well in school and increasing their likelihood to graduate. So we wanted to see, is there anything that we could do to increase adults' likelihood to show up for class? What's the equivalent of tapping them on the shoulder on Sunday night to say, hey, you're going to class this week? So we designed a series of experiments, just testing a little communication, a text or an email that just reminded them about, first of all, this social belonging. We had messages that said stuff like, you've got this, and we've got you, we'll see you on campus, addressing a social connection. Or we had messages that said, how many days do you commit to coming to campus this week? Is it 3, 4, or 5? Text us your goal to create a commitment and an action. Nudges to impact and influence behavior. So we ran this experiment across 700 adult learners and gave them a message every week. And here's what we found. We were able to increase attendance by over 4.5%, which was quite interesting. You see, one of the heads of one of the largest campuses had said, there's no way this is going to work at all. In fact, I'm going to get nothing but complaints from students about receiving these emails or text. And in fact, just the opposite happened. Not only did we have a modest but important impact on people's likelihood to save, but students wrote letters to the administrators saying how happy they were about the care that the schools showed them by giving them this little reminder on a Sunday night. So We now have other things that we need to do to build upon this experiment. We still have this drop-off that happens, but now we have data to see when and where that happens. And we have hypotheses about other things that we can now try as new interventions at those more specific times. So here's where science shows us a systematic impact on the opportunity to refine our strategies. So then, what does this look like? I want to walk you through our framework to operationalize innovation. I like to make behavioral economics seem so pragmatic in this way, but this is the framework that we've built for the last 10 years that brings behavioral economics from the theory to the execution in the real world. So this is spanning research and strategy to driving through to implementation. So how do we do this? It's about being curious in the world and making observations about what we think might work and gathering data. It's that, looking in the store and trying to gather data to understand, let's say, the speed of one line relative to another. And then it's identifying the measurable, observable behaviors that we want to have the greatest impact on. Next, this is where we look to the prior literature or stand on the shoulders of giants. This is where I invite you to look at prior scholarly research for any question that you're curious about and have a new way, a whole new set of insights to build your strategies upon. Ideation now. Ideation, fundamentally, this is about if you can understand a bias, how can you use that bias to actually impact and influence behavior? This is, for instance, using our status quo bias and then using nudge to have an impact. And it's about going beyond very traditional business approaches. We very typically tend to say, oh, if only our clients were more aware, if only we gave them more information, if we addressed literacy, or if we gave them incentives in the form of fees and fines to negative inducement, or if we use things like rewards to impact and influence behavior. Behavioral economics challenges those traditional approaches to impacting and influencing behavior. Next, we would say experiment. Imagine that coin study that we looked at. How would we resolve which idea to try? Historically, in businesses, we find the most senior person in the room will tell us which thing to do, or maybe the highly paid consultant, instead of the democratizing effect that experimentation has on telling us what actually had the greatest impact. And so the most powerful tool that businesses can use is the randomized controlled test to help us drive innovation. And choice architecture, this is where we actually use evidence to impact and influence our strategies, instead of just relying on anecdote and intuition, on tradition, on hierarchy. So in summary then, the benefits of behavioral science. We have a new way to unlock innovation. We have deeper insights about the science of how we make decisions, and we can use that to help people make better decisions, buy the right products and services, and feel more satisfied with their relationship with our companies. This facilitates risk-taking and testing ideas that we wouldn't otherwise think would be effective. And last but not least, it democratizes ideation. And so, in conclusion, the power to transform society and the economy through scientific thinking is within you. Thank you.